George Santos will be one of the Republican newcomers to Congress this coming January, and this morning he is going on the record. And Congressman-elect George Santos is joining me now. So good morning to you. Thanks for being here. Congratulations.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you for having me.
So, Congressman-elect, as we said, this was a blue seat held by Tom Suozzi, flipped red. So why do you think Republicans in New York in particular did so well when it certainly wasn't the case around the country?
Well, if you look at New York, for the first time in New York's history, we were controlled by one-party rule down the line, from Albany to New York City to Washington, D.C. They couldn't look at anyone else but Democrats to blame for the failed policies, crime, the cost of living increase, the cost of energy increase. And they saw a solution in people talking about common sense issues, and that was the Republicans for this election cycle. We talked about the issues while Democrats talked about smearing their opponents. And I guess that the people are tired of political rhetoric, and I'm so glad that the rhetoric ends now and the campaigning is over, and now I got to actually go fulfill those campaign promises and deliver for the people of the 3rd District of New York.
Okay, so Anthony Esposito also flipped his district to Republican, right? And he spoke a lot about working in such a bipartisan manner moving forward when he gets to Washington. Do you plan on taking the same approach, crossing the aisle, working with the other side?
I plan on working on common sense policy. If the Democrats want to work on common sense, I am more than welcome to working with anybody who wants to deliver a better America, a prosperous America, and fight to keep the American dream alive. Okay. Whether Republican or Democrat, I'm willing to work on the issues.
So stepping back and taking a look at the bigger picture here, right? While Republicans were very successful on election night on Long Island, many look at the lack of this red wave nationally and say it may be a wake-up call for the Republican Party and its messaging. Do you think that's the case? And do you think your messaging differed from the national message of the party, which is why you yourself were successful?
Look, our message here in the suburbs of New York City was simple. In northeastern Queens, where I'm a resident, and on the North Shore of Long Island, we've experienced crime. We've experienced the seepage of crime coming in from New York City and affecting our livelihoods and our way of life and the quality of life. So the reality is our messaging was of experience firsthand. And I think we just spoke directly to the people of how we felt, and it resonated. Like I said, you might say that the Democrats had a fairly good night on election night, and I won't disagree with you there. The Republicans did lose some incumbents across the country, and that's unfortunate. But the Republican gains came in a very crucial area of our country, which is New York, where nobody expected it. Redistricting didn't play the big part that the Democrats are trying to blame on. It was really messaging, and our message wasn't very different from the national message, but we could feel it firsthand, and it resonated on a personal level with the voters here locally. We had a great quality of candidates. I might say myself, I'm biased and pat myself on the shoulder, but the reality is we're good quality candidates. We're from these neighborhoods. We live in these neighborhoods. We experience the troubles that we all have in these neighborhoods, and I think that just resonates much deeper when you're putting somebody to run for office.
So I spoke to Congressman-elect Michael Lawler on Pix Up Morning News, who defeated Sean Patrick Maloney, and he discussed the presidential election moving forward and possibly looking at more candidates than just former President Donald Trump if the party wants to move forward. Do you agree on that issue?
The way I look at it is very simple. Whoever wants to run, I encourage them to run. I think it's a democratic process. I have not made my pick on who I will support. I have formally supported President Donald Trump in 2016, 2020. Right now, I'm just looking to see who our options are going to be and who's going to have the best interest of America and an agenda that works for America the best.
Okay, so in Congress, obviously, you'll work on national legislation, but obviously represent your own constituents on Long Island. You talked about some of your campaign messaging. So on day one, what is your top priority that you're going to bring to Congress?
Day one, I want to reset the course for Americans. I think Americans have lost confidence in Washington, D.C. For far too long, Americans in members of Congress, in Washington, have seemed to not focus on the constituency and the American people at large, and have focused more so on themselves. So I think the number one thing we need to do is pass a stock ban act for members of Congress and their immediate families, so that we can make and give confidence to the American people that it's not about the bottom line of the member of Congress, but it's more about them, because I think that will reshift the focus back to the people, and we can deliver a bipartisan, common sense agenda for the American people where prosperity will be prevailing and everybody will have a fair shot at the American dream.
And, there's been a lot of speculation on the Republican agenda if they took control of the House, which is still, at this point, at this taping, up in the air. I wanted to get your opinion on some of those agenda points points, including this possibility of removing some Democrats from their committee assignments. Is that action that you think the GOP should take, and if so, who?
Look, I don't believe in decommitting members of Congress. The people of their states and their districts elected these people and send them to represent them in Congress. I think it's absolutely disgraceful that other members go ahead and remove the voice of representation from the constituencies by removing people from committee assignments. I don't support it when they did it to us. I don't support doing it to them. I think that's a bad precedent, and we should stop that immediately.
And there's been a lot of talk about crime, and bail reform here in New York. You're a congressman, so you can't really touch the bail reform law out of Albany. But is there a national or a law you can pass in Congress that you'd be willing to put forth if you believe the bail reform should be changed?
Absolutely. We can create a check system for states who want to go rogue and coddle criminals and keep their elected officials accountable through federal funding. Look, you need to check boxes. Government's first responsibility to its citizens is simple: public safety. If you're not delivering that, then you're failing your oath to office. So what we have to do is make sure that we put a check systems that say, does this state qualify as a safe environment? Are they putting safe policies to keep Americans in this state safe? And that's how we're going to we can put that as a qualification marker to look at disbursements of appropriations of funds for those states.
All right, Congressman-elect George Santos, good to talk to you. You're welcome back anytime, but I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Dan.
Right after the election. Good to have you.